Well, all right, let me just say this, that by definition they're unidentified. Yes, we just that's all we can call them. We give them a name, right? They're unidentified. Why are they unidentified? Because science is unwilling to look at them. Engineers are unwilling to spend any time studying. Government is unwilling to spend any money to study them at all, so they're unidentified, right? They are atmospheric, but there are other kinds that are underwater, yes, under oceans, seas, right? So they're not UAP, they're submerged phenomena. But they may be the same physical phenomena, we don't know. And by definition, there are phenomena which makes them plural. NARCAP is not forcing our definition into one thing, which would be a singular phenomenon in English. But in English language, phenomena is plural. So we're leaving that door open for a wide range of phenomena. Do you see the idea? Now, I think what you want me to say is that they're extraterrestrial. And I cannot say that. I don't have the evidence. But as soon as I do have that evidence, I'll let you know. I'll call you up and I'll tell you.
Another question, Dr. Haines, we want to know which cases do you consider is the most important, talking about the pilot and this phenomenon of the UFOs?
UAP.
Oh, UAP, pardon me.
Right. Okay.
UAP.
Well, that's a very good question. And in order to answer it, I would have to explain to you what makes a case important. And then we can talk about which cases fit that criteria or acceptance. For a case to be important, from my personal point of view, it has to include physical evidence. It cannot just be the verbal report, the memory of a pilot who's seen something. So in the case of Carlos Antonio, you have a dent in the bottom of the airplane, and you have radar confirmation, and you have a landing wheels gear that is jammed for some reason that shouldn't happen. So that makes it important. But there's another reason why a case can be important besides physical evidence, and that is on public impact, the publicity factor. That if a pilot will share a case publicly, wearing his uniform and with all his credentials and identity as a professional, what he's doing is sending a message to the viewers of the video or the program that, hey, this is an acceptable subject to talk about. We don't have to be afraid of it or ashamed of it, you see. So that's the second reason that I think a case is important or not. A third reason is that the case, the encounter by the pilot changes his life. Now, in most cases it does. The pilots I have talked to over the years, they've had a close encounter at cruise altitude, 35,000 feet, cruise speed, Mach 0.8 or whatever. They land and their life is never the same. It's changed them inside. They are confronted with a new reality. You understand? Mm-hmm. That the universe is much bigger than they ever thought it was. That OVNI or UAP do exist. Before that, they didn't exist. They were completely impossible. So there's three reasons. Now, let me try to give you some examples that fit those three. Kenju Teruchi of Japan Airlines, flying from Paris, France to Tokyo, 747 cargo flight with Beaujolais wine on board. Kenju Teruchi, yes. And he's coming in over the border of Alaska and Canada. You know the story. And you know, I won't go to the details. Well, I interviewed him with many details. And he has physical evidence because of radar. All right? It immediately hit the headlines of the newspapers. So it has publicity factor. And it changed his life. Okay. Now, that's one case. Another case would be Captain Phil Schultz. flying an L-1011 TWA commercial passenger flight, July 4th, 1976, something like that. I forget the year. Flying over Lake Michigan from west to east. Clear sunny day. The sun is bright right here. And all of a sudden, he was on autopilot, so nobody was flying the airplane. You understand? He told me, well, let me back up, because Phil had been working for me. He's a commercial pilot, but NASA would hire commercial pilots to come to our research center and fly a simulator for research purposes. And so we hired Phil and many other pilots to do that. So he would come for testing, and we would put him in the simulator and for maybe an hour at a time and collect the information we needed, and he would go away. And then next week he might come back again for another test, right? Well, on his last day of testing, I asked him, we won't see each other again, but could you tell me if in all the years of flying, if you've ever seen anything you couldn't identify? And he looked at me and he said, absolutely not. I've never seen any UFOs, any UAP. They don't exist. How can I see them if they don't exist? He said to me, I was a combat Marine pilot in Korea during the war. And I saw a lot of things during that time, but never a UAP, nothing like that. And I said, okay, that's all right. But would you do me a favor, Phil? We got to be friends. Would you take this pilot reporting form I have? It's blank. It's for any general purpose. Would you just take that home with you and put it in your bag, your briefcase, and you don't need it, but maybe you'll meet a pilot in the future who can use it, right? So he said, no, I don't even want to touch it. He was just really negative. And I said, Phil, we're friends. Just do this as a favor. And I think he took that from me just as to get out of my office. He wanted to go home, you see. I wasn't going to let him go home until he did that. So he took my form and left. And I didn't hear from him for 9 months. And one day, my phone rang. And the phone rang, and it was Phil Schultz, Captain Schultz. He says, Dr. Haines, you will never believe what just happened to me and my crew, my flight crew. And he told me the story now, July 4th, I think it was 76.